Hello, Rashid ji. Thank you very much for
Yeah,
joining. And we tried it yesterday. Yesterday it didn't work out, but today I'm hoping it will work out. So thanks a lot. Welcome. And please introduce yourself. Please tell us a little bit about.
I'm happy to join you.
Okay. So please give us some background about yourself, about your journey, your experience, knowledge, learning, anything that you feel would be interesting.
Okay. Well, it's really a pleasure to be able to talk to you like this. Um, you never know where to start with these stories because they go on forever. Um, I just wanted to say that I was born at the time when the great storm clouds of war were gathering over Europe, just before the First World War, the Second World War, and it was my uncle who actually came back from Munich with a piece of paper saying, "Peace in our time." He was my actually great uncle, my mother's uncle. So that gives you the context of being in a family that was high up in politics, the dynasty of the Chamberlains. So I want to set that as a context of being in a family of high expectations and very political material. My father was a banker, and so in a way the privilege for me in this birth was to see that actually all this material wealth, all this power doesn't give you anything. My I saw in the context of my early childhood how wealth and power was not giving people happiness. Um, I had a conventional education in English, upper middle class English. I went to in those days we had to do 2 years national service, so that was actually a very good thing, a very good grounding thing to be in the military. Actually, I joined the Navy, fought at Suez, and then went hitchhiking around America. This was my first real immersion into an independent world. I think I was trying to be a beatnik before beatniks were invented. And then Oxford, very unsatisfactory for me. I was back in that world I wanted to leave, and I left and went to art school. And somehow, for the first time, I found people who spoke a language I understood, who spoke the same language as me. And the language of the arts, which is a non-verbal language, I felt immediately familiar with and at home. The other thing about painting is that it is always, in my opinion, looking for unity, looking for oneness, looking for wholeness. Within the rectangle of that canvas, you're looking for oneness. And so, in a way, I think I was on a spiritual search without knowing I was on a. I had one marriage that didn't work. I was unhappy. Had children from it. Had a second marriage which was very happy and beautiful. And then I wanted out from the art world, which was quite a cutthroat, political, competitive world. So I had the idea, along with my wife, second wife, that if we grew all our own food, we wouldn't need to earn living working in galleries or teaching in art school, which is what I'd been doing, teaching in art school. And also I'd been teaching in therapy in a mental hospital, and teaching ex-prisoners and teaching drug addicts, different jobs at different times. But that was also an interesting journey into the inside, into the within. So I bought a farm and grew my own vegetables and looked after, had animals. I was eating meat in those days. I don't nowadays. And we lived very happily for 3 or 4 years. And in fact, it was absolutely the perfect life, everything. But at one stage, we said, we've got everything, and yet there's something missing. It happened at that time, I had a little flirtation with Christianity. And there was just something wonderful about the Welsh farmers. It was on the Welsh-English border. The way those farmers sang, they sang with their hearts and their whole being. There was a feeling of the sublime. But again, with that came rules and regulations, there came dogma, there came creeds. This is the way to behave. So that's brought me to the state where I was ready to meet Osho. Okay, is that a good introduction for you? Because now I've got...
Yes, yeah.
That was 40 years of my life. I got to the age of 40.
Yeah, that's very good.
Yes?
Perfect.
Okay.
Go ahead. So go ahead with how you...
So I'll just go on now. How I came to Osho. Because this is an extraordinary story, actually. It happened that one day, 2 members of the church came up to my farm and said, we've heard stories that you were swimming on the Lord's Day, on the Sabbath. Yeah, I was swimming in the river, beautiful, with the kids. But that's against the religion. That's against... The Lord's Day is sacred, is a holy day. You don't do anything. And this was so ridiculous to me. This was 1977. These people were talking about 1877. So I had this long argument with them standing in a field, and we're overlooking the Wye Valley, the Welsh mountains. You could see right across to the Brecon Beacons. You could see the Black Mountains. It was just an exquisite view. And we're having this argument about the meanings of words and how to interpret the Bible and stuff. And they're inflexible, they're rigid. And in the end, I just said, fuck off. I can't be living my life by these rigid ways. So that weekend, I got finished with the church. A cheque for £1,000 arrived for some paintings that my wife and I had sold way back a year ago. We hadn't had a holiday. You can't have a holiday when you're a farmer. But we'd been invited to go and stay with my wife's mother, and that was cancelled. And then a friend asked if he could stay and look after the farm because he got nowhere to live. And we knew he'd be good to look after the farm. And a book arrived from an old friend, but actually the guy who'd been my best man. He was also a painter, a sculptor. And my wife was reading it in the early morning to me, and I'm sitting there milking the cow, which I did every day, milking this, squirting this milk into the pail, and it was your face in the flank of the cow. It's a beautiful, beautiful meditative space. And she started reading from this book called My Way, the Way of the White Cloud by Bhagwan Sri Rashneesh. And she hadn't read a paragraph, and we're both in tears. And we're in tears because this guy is articulating what it is that we're feeling and not being able to express or get a handle on. It just happened that another of my oldest best friends was in the kitchen at the time, just staying, burning toast for breakfast. And we read it to him, and he's crying. And we're saying, we have to meet this man. Because he's we've been through all the politics, we've been through the affluence. It hasn't got the answers. This guy is talking a language that absolutely reverberates. So with that money, with the guy to look after the farm, within 3-4 weeks we're in Pune. And this was extraordinary. We arrive after, I don't know, it was a 24-hour journey because the plane got held up at Abu Dhabi, and then we had a change in Delhi, and so we'd been on this long journey with 3 kids, my wife and I, and then we arrived in the morning in the ashram, and I just remember walking through the gate and my jaw dropping to the ground because there is so much beauty. There is so much beauty. The people, the way they walked. You know, they were young, they were old, they were black, they were Indian, they were white, they were rich, they were poor, they were tall, they were ugly, but there was a beauty and a grace. And I couldn't. This is something I'd never seen. Okay, so the ritual was that you just came. Everyone's wearing orange, that was the other thing, and we're wearing blue jeans and a t-shirt, green t-shirt and stuff. And what happened was that Osho used to come out. I'm calling him Osho, but then he was Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. But since 89 or something, he changed his name. He used to come out to discourse every day at 8 o'clock in the morning, and there were these, I don't know, 200 or 300 people sitting there, and you're sitting at the back. And I just remember walking into the hall, leaving our shoes at the door, sitting down in my jeans, and there's this incredible silence. Like, actually, you hear the trains, the rickshaws, the birds, distant traffic. But what was incredible was the vibrant silence. And when he comes in, it's just intensified. And when he starts talking, it's even more intensified. And he's talking, actually, as I recall, this extraordinary, it was like a welcome for us. He was talking from the Heart Sutra of the Buddha, Gautama the Buddha. And he was saying, the Buddha had been saying, a gathering such as this is precious. Him with his sannyasins in Bihar 2,500 years before. He's saying this gathering is precious, and it will happen rarely on this planet. And I was getting goose pimples thinking, it's happening now. These 500 people. We were in that field of energy, that silence. So I didn't know how to interpret all this. I was just feeling immense feelings. I remember we did 2 or 3 days like this, and it was very clearly that we wanted to become sannyasins. And becoming sannyasins was the I was going to use the word commitment, but it's not really like a commitment, like a contract, but it was like a commitment to yourself that I'm on the path. I want to find out who I am. I want to find out what I'm doing on this planet. I want to know if there's God, if there's heaven, if what it's all about. So taking sannyas was in a way like that, the first step on the journey. And what happened actually, the night we were going, the day before we were going to take sannyas, because my wife and I both agreed that that's what we would do. You took sannyas in the evening in what was called darshan, which was just sitting in a small group with Osho. In the morning, after the discourse, he used to drive around the hall, a very small gravel drive in his car, with the window down, just namasteing. And so we're sitting at the back. So suddenly, the hall is huge, and I'm seeing him every day from, I don't know, 30 meters, 40 meters away. Suddenly, he's 3 meters away because I've just swung around. We swung around at the back, and we're namasteing. And there was something about that smile, that look, that killed me. I just lay down there and I cried and I cried and I cried for an hour. I don't know, 2 hours, I don't know. People came, touched my back, people stroked me, people moved on. I just was crying out all the agony of my life, all the sweetness too, actually, the love, the lost love, the pain, the excitement, the frustration. It was all just it was very clear to me that night to take sannyas. And then he gave me the name. He gave us a mala. This is a mala, which he used to put around our neck. And he would just give a little burst of energy on it's called Shaktipat in Indian tradition. Gave us a name and talk about the name. And now, this is amazing, the name he gave me was Swami Deva Rashid. Swami is master of yourself. Deva is divine. Rashid is one of the 99 names of God in the Sufi tradition, and it means the unerring one. So my name is the divine is unerring. He talked for, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 minutes telling me that the amount that I could allow the divine to run my life, the amount I would be happy. And that the amount I, Rashid, step in the way, I become unhappy. This is completely the opposite of the conditioning that I had as an English boy. You are the master of your fate. You are in charge of your life. You are in control. You and only you. If it works, that's great. That's your kudos. If it goes wrong, that's fate. That's kismet. That's bad luck. So Osho just turned that conditioning on its head for me that first evening on the third day that we took sannyas. Okay. We went back to England, sold the farm, and decided to live and move into the commune. Shall I talk a bit about the commune? Would that interest you?
Sure.
Yep. Okay. Yep. It's very amazing to think of, to begin with 500, 600, 700, 1,000, 1,500, by the end 5,000 people living in harmony, without rules, without hierarchy, without competition, to live harmoniously, 5,000 people. This, and later 10,000. I mean, this was an extraordinary phenomenon that happened around Osho. And, you know, I don't even want to go and try and explain it. It is, I think, one of those inexplicable appurtenances of a Buddha, of enlightenment, of a charismatic figure. Subsequently, you know, after Osho left the body in 1990, I have been in many attempts to rebuild a commune, to live communally, because it is such a beautiful way of living. It is such an economical way of living. It is such a harmonious and fluent way of living. I wanted to, we all wanted to, but it never worked. We all messed up. I lived in a commune in Brazil. I mean, we had a huge piece of land. We had resources, and we ended up egos clashing. Without the charismatic, enlightened figure of the master, the egos will always interfere. So that for me was an extraordinary gift to have experienced in my life, a blessing to have had, to live in a commune for 12, 13 years really, until the master died, and then I left. And we all got assigned jobs. My kids were there, they went to the school. We'd given our money to the ashram because that seemed to me the most intelligent thing to do. I have no regrets, even when 15 years later I was down and out in London with no money and no job. I never regretted that giving the money, the sale of the farm. I worked in the garden. That was very challenging, to grow organic vegetables for the master and for some of the commune in soil that was totally depleted. But my farming experience stood me in good stead. I did miss not being a painter. I'd been to art school. I'd lived as an artist and as a teacher of art and as an art therapist. And I missed that discipline in a way, not discipline, that daily meeting with yourself. But it was more than compensated for by learning meditation, learning that that's actually a more economical way of traveling inwards than the art was. Art, as I was saying, was searching for unity. Meditation is a much more direct to the heart of the matter. And I just want to say that I had tried meditation. You'd read books, but we'd read books in the past, and it was part of my spiritual journey with Christianity. I thought meditation might help, but it never got anywhere. I couldn't. We don't have that tradition in the West of sitting silently. We don't have the tradition of being able to do nothing. You're nodding and you're smiling, and I know that's the joy for me of India, that this is part of your heritage. And in fact, I heard a little boy, age 6, when asked in India, little Indian boy, age 6, when asked, what will you do when you grow up? He was being interviewed. He said, I'll try and balance the inner and the outer. I thought, that's amazing, amazing. But that's for me what Osho was giving us the opportunity for the inner and the outer. And if he wouldn't call himself a teacher. He wasn't a teacher. In fact, I think he said I seem to remember him saying something like, I'm not trying to teach something, I'm trying to create something. So he talked for an hour and a half, 2 hours every day, but he's not teaching, and yet we're learning. So that was part of the miracle of every morning sitting for an hour and a half. And this was how I learned meditation. And this is how I see that our benighted, sad world can revive itself. That meditation is the tool to solve all the problems we have. All the problems we have are solved through meditation. Which is not, I'm not saying all meditators are saints. I'm not saying all meditators are lovely people. There are some horrible ones. But meditation is the tools by which we can first of all, discern our ego and gradually distance ourselves from that needy, competitive, contradictory ego. And it is that stepping back from ego which is the gift that I feel I got from Osho. And the other thing that I want to say that I was learning in this time was that he's not talking about us withdrawing to a cave in the Himalayas and leaving the world behind. And he is not talking about us being lost in the world, being consumed in the marketplace. He's talking about the balance of the inner and the outer, that kid again. He's talking, and actually his sort of lovely phrase was Zorba the Buddha. Zorba from Zorba the Greek, that amazing film, that amazing book by Katsantakis. This guy is all man, all human. He's so in his emotions and his body, and he's an uninhibited, pure human being. And there's Buddha, who is pure otherworldliness, pure celestial divinity. And Osho was giving us Zorba the Buddha, not one, but both. I think, actually, if you wanted Osho's philosophy in a nutshell, both and. It's not either or, both and. But he was a philosophy major at university, but philosophy was not one of his favorite subjects. He was always very good at demolishing philosophy and philosophers. Okay, I would have a drink of water now, but it means going into the next room and just getting a drink. Can we just vacate this seat for 30 seconds, and then we can start with a new question, maybe? Okay. Here we are.
Okay. So,
Good.
I have two questions, and you can answer them in any order that you want. So, one question is many people report that they felt lot of Shakti, like divine energy, divine power, something that you cannot explain, something that is not.
Sorry, I'm losing. I'm losing. I can't hear you.
Okay. Okay.
I'm losing your question. Okay. Okay. You've asked me a difficult question. Um, you wanted to ask about Shakti, divine energy around Osho. Many people reported to experience immense peace and bliss simply by being around him. Did you experience something similar? What do you think that is? I did experience it. We all experienced it. Almost, it was inescapable. Um, I remember I had the privilege at one stage of being his gardener, being the one growing vegetables for him. I used to take the daily crop into the house where he lived. His house was lived in by maybe half a dozen of his old disciples, people who'd been around him, his administrator, Ma Lakshmi, Ma Yogamukta, uh, maybe more than a dozen, maybe 20 people. But you walked into that house and you could almost touch the atmosphere. You could almost cut it with a knife. The silence, the stillness. I told you that when I tried to meditate in England, I couldn't sit 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It was impossible. 10 minutes max. The mind is so busy. In the presence of the Master, sitting in front of the Master, the mind goes quiet. It took a little while. It took a few weeks or something to get tuned in. But then I think really over the 13 years I was with him, we got more and more attuned to that silence. We, his people. And I'm going to not be able to answer your question. Why do I think that is? But what I can say is that this silence all right, I'll start again. The chatter of our mind is what prevents us from being whole, seeing the whole, what prevents us from actually being in touch with consciousness. Now, this is the first time I'm using this word, but it's actually the big word, the big C word. What happens in silence is that everything closes down, the mind goes quiet, but you're still conscious. You hear the traffic, you see your neighbor moving, you feel a memory comes up, you observe the memory. Who is it who's observing the memory? Who is it that is seeing through the eyes? And it's this consciousness which gradually, in the course of meditation, one becomes more and more attuned to and part of. And this consciousness is not mine or yours or his or hers or Osho's. It is consciousness. This is my understanding. Consciousness is. It's the matrix of this existence. It goes by other names. It's called God, love, peace, truth. So right now we're calling it consciousness, just for the sake of words. And now to get back to your question about Osho, was that from very, very early on, he had been living in this consciousness. He'd been living the consciousness. His mundane ego life was very remote from him. His only mundane occupation really was reading, and he read every single book of any interest or importance that came out between I don't know 1950 and 1980. And he did that not, I think, for himself, but just to learn how to communicate to us, because this was our world. One had the feeling that, I mean, he could go at any time. That was also part of my urgency to be with him. Like from the moment we took sanyas, I just knew I could never not be with him. And it was because he was so lightly attached to the body that he could just float out at any moment. And so for me, that was a lot of my focus, was to drink as much his wine as I could in the time available. Yeah, and we got pretty drunk. So that's answered your question, hasn't it?
Yes, yes, yes.
Without being able to describe why it's so, I think I've just referred to that. Okay, next question. All right.
Okay, okay. So yeah, so thanks a lot. So you did talk, fair deal about Osho and your experience with Osho, your experience in commune. Now, like Osho is gone, and he has been gone for a few years. So, for somebody new or somebody not very familiar with Osho, if you had to summarize your own learning, your own experience, your own spiritual knowledge, advice, message, other than like Osho or any master, what could that be? So if you had to talk about,
That's okay. I'll just start, shall I? Okay. It seems we got frozen. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
yes, yes, I can hear
Okay. Well, I just want to say to start with, he's left the body, but never for a moment have I felt that he's not available as some essence or some vibration. These are weak words, but you know, like when you're first in love and you've declared your love to the girl, and she's declared her love for you, and then you have to go to work or something, you skip off down the street 6 inches off the ground. And that love, that lovingness of that girl is with you all through your office day or whatever work you're doing. And in the same way, I have always felt he's with me. He's with me. And I don't actually have to do anything about that. I sit, I meditate every day, but that's, that was just a gift that I'm not doing it for him, I'm doing it for me, because I see what an amazingly clarifying process it is for all these fuck-ups and trips and conflicts and stuff we have surrounding us and we've inherited and all that sort of stuff. So I meditate every day. And so what I would say to somebody who never met Osho, I don't think it matters. And that's been my experience. I mean, I go to India from time to time and I meet here too in England, people who never met the Master, never met him, and I don't feel they're any different in their connection to him from me. We have the same connection. And not only that, because we're connected to him, in some way we're connected to each other. We may enjoy each other, we may not, we may have nothing to do with each other, but there is a sort of connection which I think is, again, mysterious. I can't explain it. My life has been both wonderful and appalling, actually, because leaving the commune was incredibly difficult. Living actually without his physical presence, I had to learn to do that. I had to learn, and I had to learn the hard way. I had to hit rock bottom. That's what I was saying. One of the things we tried to do was a sustainable community in Brazil on this amazing remote piece of land in the middle of nowhere. Thousands and thousands of acres, and some willing people, like 30 or 40 people with a big sort of support backup system who couldn't make it but was supporting us. And it didn't work. And that I ended up actually in London. I had to come back to London because my daughter had twins, so we're talking about 19 years ago, because they just had their 19th birthday. And she caught one of those diseases in the hospital where there's special hospital diseases, and she was in a coma. And I just came zooming back. I had an exhibition of paintings in Brazil at the time, in the capital in Brasilia, in one of the city art galleries. And on the day of my private view, I'm suddenly trying to get a ticket to get back to England to be with my daughter. Actually, as it all worked out, she got fine, and I looked after the kids for a while. And then, having left the kids, now I'm alone in London, and I don't know what to do. I'm 50-something years old, can't get a job. I did actually live by little carpentry jobs, building. I remember doing some teaching. But it was so difficult, so difficult. And in the end, one of those wonderful things happened, which was a friend called from Spain to say, you've built some... One of the things I'd been doing was designing and building places of meditation, zendos, dojos, sort of beautiful viewing platforms for moon watching or whatever. And she knew somebody who wanted one, so off I went to Spain, and that was the end. But I did have 9 months in London. It was very, very difficult. I want to say also about other teachers that I've never been of the opinion that Osho didn't want us to go to other masters, except when he was in the body. And then sometimes it was people were going to other masters like Nisargadatta in Bombay. And then he'd actually hammer the guy because he could see it was splitting the energy. So this guy was like, am I with him? Am I with him? But after he left the body, whenever there was that fragrance in the air, I'd run to it. So I met Ramesh Balsekar in Bombay. I used to go down to Tiruvannamalai to sit in the ashram of Ramana Maharshi. I've been up to Belur Mat to sit. I mean, I love the fragrance of those who have known freedom, those who have lived it, those who are truth. So, and then there are many Westerners who are coming through. I did go once to, what was his name, Papaji? I've forgotten his full name, Punjaji. Yeah, I spent 3 days there. He wasn't my man, but it was a lovely feeling, and many of my friends from that time became self-realized and have now become satsang teachers or on the satsang circuit. So yes, I have been very inspired and helped by other enlightened beings. But there's a phrase in Sanskrit which is Satguru, which is my Satguru. So I have a feeling I can always refer to him for whatever issues I need to deal with. Okay, another drink of water, another question.
Okay. So let me think of this question. Okay. So you mentioned about Osho and how you felt around him, how he thought he was, what was your experience. So, I mean, Osho was also a human being, just like you, just like me, or other people. So, in what way you think he was similar to you? In what way you think he was different from
you? Okay. Um, I'm a bit uncomfortable with this question because I have to hypothesize because I don't know what he was. In a way, like I said in an email to you, he was the embodiment of the unknowable. You know, that somehow he had lived so intensely in that state of freedom, in that state of nirvana, that how do I know what he was like? I mean, he was a man. He was a man, and he had to eat and have a shower and go to the toilet, and he had an eye for pretty girls. He no, but I never felt he was ever subject to his emotions, subject to his ego. It was, you know, I remember seeing him angry on occasions, on one occasion, but you'd hardly know it, but somebody was in a darshan, somebody was just being provocative and, sort of, in a way foolish, and he just hit him. And that was actually one of the few times I ever saw him, the blade, the stick come down hard. Usually it came down very subtly, like out of sight. So really I have to say he was totally human, but at the same time, in my understanding, he was not of. He was in the world, but not of it. He was absolutely free of it, and free of all the emotions and stuff. And that is frightening for people. That is frightening.
So I will ask another question, which
Yeah.
again might be uncomfortable or challenging, and that's okay. So I will ask, and this question will have, it's only one question, but it has three parts. So part one will be, do you think you are enlightened? Part two will be, what do you think enlightenment, or whatever name you want to call it, self-realization, awakening,
Hmm.
nirvana, is? And if you think you are
Yeah.
not enlightened, then what needs to happen in order for you to know, feel that you are enlightened?
Okay. Three good questions. They're not uncomfortable. They're quite comfortable. You'll be glad to hear. Uh, am I enlightened? Do I think I'm enlightened? Well, if I thought I was enlightened, I would not be, because the very thinking is what actually prevents enlightenment. Enlightenment is a condition of knowing. It is a knowing without words, without logic, without thought. Um, so I don't think I'm enlightened. Um, oh God! Now you've got to tell me what was the second bit about?
Yeah.
If
So
I'm,
yes.
what was the second one?
So I think you already defined what you think is enlightenment. If not, you can clarify it, define it.
Yeah,
So what is
yeah,
your
yes. No, yeah.
enlightenment? And third is related, which is what it would take for you to know, experience, feel that you are enlightened, and whatever you are. I mean, you can keep meditating forever.
Right.
That's not a question, but at least the concept of journey, the concept of trying to reach somewhere or trying to get something will be over, will be finished. So what it would take for you to get there?
I remember. Uh, I remember hearing not just Osho but many teachers saying that the desire for enlightenment is the last barrier. Um, Sometimes I'm experiencing the barrier, and sometimes I'm not. Uh, um, I tell you what, love is a very beautiful remover of barriers. You know, I have a beautiful woman, I have beautiful kids, I have beautiful grandchildren, I have beautiful friends. Love and meditation are the two wings that'll take you over any barrier. I think that's all.
Okay, so I will ask. I mean, I don't. Okay, so maybe I will not ask. I will give you like one of my interpretation. One of
Yeah.
my interpretation, one of my learning from Osho, from my own self experience, as well as for other teachers, spirituality, would be that I mean, anytime you bring time, you bring future, you bring past, or you bring an entity, identification, me, this, that, him, her, are taking yourself from your original condition, from your natural state. And that natural state is what many refer to as enlightenment. Anytime you are thinking
That's
of,
beautiful.
anytime you are thinking, you are trying to judge something, trying to judge what you experience, trying to judge what you feel, trying to judge your thought or your state of being, you are creating a split. And when that split is not there, you are in your original one condition. That condition is again called oneness, called nirvana, or whatever you want to call it. So I will say that and one of my interpretation of message from Osho or from other master will be that as I am breathing in right now, can I take just one breath totally, completely, devoid of any desire, any need of going anywhere, any need of doing anything, achieving anything. If I can, then in that breath, in that moment, there is my original condition. We call it enlightenment, we call it nirvana, or don't call it anything. It doesn't matter. But in that moment, in that one breathing, I do not seek anything. I do not want anything. I do not need anything. There is nothing that is not complete in that particular moment. So that will be my interpretation.
Beautifully expressed. Beautifully. I should have been interviewing you.
Sure. Okay. Okay, so thanks a lot, Rashid ji. And if you want to pass some parting
All right,
words
my friend.
and anything like if people want to reach you, contact you, anything you want to share. Did you get my question?
Say it again. This is my book, available on Amazon. Yeah. The Point of Vanishing. If people want to contact me through the website, that is totally fine. My website is www.rashidmaxwell.com. And yeah, buy my book. And I've also got books of poetry. A number of volumes of poetry. I write poetry a lot now, and I'll be publishing another one. Life is one blessed thing after another, and various other books. But yeah, I don't see myself as a teacher at all. I love to share things. This extraordinary, blessed life I've been given, and I'm not a teacher, but I love
Okay, so
sharing.
Shivji, thanks a lot. And I will put a summary under the video and I will put the name of both the books. a lot.
Good.
So, ah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, as you were saying about Osho,
Mm.
so one thing
I can't.
Osho was saying was, I'm not teaching you.
Uh,
Yeah, don't worry about not hearing. I'll type it. So one thing
okay.
that I heard from Osho, he said, I am not teaching you, but you are free to learn.
Hmm.
I do not speak to teach you,
Mm.
but you are free to learn from what
Beautiful.
I say.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So
You're
thanks
a
a lot,
lovely
Rajneesh.
man. Nice meeting